Star Realms is a card game made in 2017-2018 by White Wizard Games. And I always love to have people tell me that they have a game that they'd like to show on our show. And I'm here with Alan Bangs. He works here at Access Fort Wayne. Thank you for coming in today.
Sure.
I know you told me about this game a while back. And tell me, what is it? It's a space game with cards?
Yeah, you're going to play cards that allow you to build a fleet of spaceships to try to win the game by reducing the authority of your opponent. And the authority is the word they use for your health.
Okay.
So there's cards here in the center, and you have a few cards that you start with, and
Okay.
you use those to purchase these better cards.
Okay.
And as the game progresses, you have these cards that represent anything from little fighters or shuttles to big space battleships.
Okay.
And you use those then to attack your opponent or to increase your own authority, aka health, or to have trade for purchasing new ships that are in the middle here and available.
And then what's the goal? You're just fighting ships, or is it?
The goal, every turn you're going to play 5 cards, and you're going to play those 5 cards and deal damage to your opponent, and use trade to buy more cards. And there are some cards that give you more authority or health, so you can increase your own to help mitigate the damage that maybe your opponent did to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you would lose if you lost all your health.
Yeah. Everybody starts with 50 authority, and we use these cards here to keep track of that. So where Paula and I are both on 50 right now, and as the game progresses, that will decrease, sometimes increase. You can get above 50.
Okay.
I put a couple of cards out here, and I think you got some pictures of them that show some examples of what these cards can do. Every card has a cost associated with it. So when you buy a card, the upper right-hand corner has the price that it takes in trade to pay for the card, and then that goes into your discard pile and will get shuffled into your personal deck as the game goes. And then they all have an effect. Like this card, this yellow card, gives you 2 trade every time you play it. And that is trade that you can spend to buy cards from the trade row that is in the middle of the table here. If there's another yellow card, which are they call them the Star Empire, if there's another yellow card that you've played that turn in your hand, you also get 4 combat. So it pays to have cards of the same faction in your deck because they'll play off each other and complement each other in that way.
You said that this is a starter deck, and you can also buy boosters and build decks.
Yeah, and one of the great things about this game is it's fairly inexpensive, and you can buy boosters that add more of a variety of cards and even a few new special cards to the game, and so that can make it a lot of fun. That way there's a lot of replayability when you do that.
Because like you said, there's the Star faction, and then there's this other faction in this deck.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, there's 4 factions. There's Star Empire, and we talked a little bit about this card. There's the Trade Federation, and this particular card is a little more expensive. It costs 5 to purchase, and it will give you 5 combat, and you'll increase your own authority by 4 when you play it. For this particular one, if you have another Trade Federation card that you play on that turn, you get an additional 2 combat and an additional 2 authority.
Okay.
Not all the cards have the ability to complement from another card in their faction, but a lot of them do, so that's certainly worth mentioning. There's a couple other factions too. There's the Blob, which are evil aliens, and there is, and I always forget the name, the Machine Cult. And they're the red cards. The Blob are the green cards.
Okay.
And They all have, each of the four factions have specialties in the game. Like the Trade Federation is good at giving you more authority. The Star Empire can make your opponent discard a card. I forgot to mention that. On this card it says target opponent discards a card. And that might make it a little bit harder for your opponent to have a good turn the next turn. And the Blob is great at combat. They'll dish out a lot of damage. And the Machine Cult is good at drawing more cards and manipulating your deck to make it better. You can actually remove cards from your deck because which brings up a good point. There's a starting deck that everybody has, and they have very simple cards that give you some trade, these scouts, and some cards that give you some combat, these vipers. And so there's a deck of 10 starting cards. So that's what Paula and I are going to start with. And Paula, if you'd like to shuffle those up.
Okay.
On the first person, the first turn, the first person to go only draws 3, and that way they can't buy all the good cards out of the trade row. Every other turn, though, you draw 5 cards each turn.
Okay.
So I'll go first.
Okay.
And
Sounds good.
I will draw 3 cards then.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3. You may draw your hand now of 5 cards. And let me set these aside because we're not going to use those.
And we're going to buy what's in the trade row.
Yeah, you can buy what's in the trade row. There's 5 cards here. You can always buy an Explorer, which are inexpensive cards. So say all the cards out here are too expensive and you can't afford them. Well, you can buy an Explorer for just 2 trade. So I have a Viper that does 1 combat, and I have 2 Scouts that are 1 trade each. So I have 2 trade that I can buy. Now, a good early game strategy is to try to get more trade into your deck. So I'm going to use these 2 trade to buy an orbital shuttle. And that costs 2. And every turn I play it, it gives me 3 more trade. And it also says here, if you have 2 or more bases in play, which we might talk about in a minute or so here, gain 4 authority and draw a card. So that ability only plays off if I have 2 bases, and that's another kind of card that you can get.
Okay.
So I've just bought this. I'm going to put it in my discard pile over here.
Okay.
We're going to put another card out to replace that one.
Okay.
And then I'm going to do 1 combat to you, so you go from 50 to 49. So I've plinked you. And at that point, I discard these cards. I draw 5 more cards, and it's your turn.
Okay. And I can play how many again?
You can play all 5 of those.
All 5 of those.
Yep.
Well, I will do that since this is my first time playing. So I have 4 trade and 1 damage.
Right.
I think I'm going to get the farm ship.
Yeah. That's probably a
that-
good play.
That does allow me to draw a card, then discard a card.
Yeah.
But does it go into the discard right now?
It goes into your discard pile right now.
Okay.
But don't worry. It's going to get, when you need more cards, when your personal deck has run out, you just shuffle up your discard pile.
Okay.
So it will reappear later.
Okay.
All right. So when you do that, we place another card.
Okay. Spike cluster.
And hey, that's one of those bases I was talking
Those
about.
bases. All right.
And we'll see what happens. Maybe one of those will come up in our deck. Oh, and you did 1 combat to me
One
too.
combat, yes.
So I'm at 49. All right. So it's my turn again, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trade. Let's see what I
Wow.
can buy for 5 trade.
Well, there's not much there.
Tell you what, I'll buy this base, and maybe it'll give us a chance to explain what happens when that comes out to play.
Okay.
And we'll put that card out.
Burrower.
So I spent 2 on this base. I have 3 more to spend. So I think I'll buy that Burrower that just came out. That's another blob card. So I have 2 blob cards in my deck now. And we put that out. There's another
And
base.
so then when we get done with our deck, we're going to go through this discard.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I have a good example of that. I'm going to draw 2 cards and then I run out.
That would be
So-
on the turn next. Yeah.
Well, at the end of your turn, you draw up for the next turn. And then I'm going to shuffle up my discard pile
Okay.
where I have put all the cards I've played and put all the cards I purchased. And shuffle those up, and I draw 3 more, and then I'm up to my 5. So
Okay.
that's for my next turn. And now it's your turn.
I believe we've run out of time for doing this demonstration. I want to thank you for coming on the show and doing this with us. We will play the game a little bit more in the credits of our show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.